welcome everybody. If you're on the Sunderland Sounds channel, it's likely that Ben is a guy that you've heard of. It's equally likely that you've seen him play. And if you're new here, you're in for a treat. Whether playing local gigs in clubs with heavy hitters like Nikki Glaspie, covering for big players like Sam Kinninger, swinging hard, ripping the blues in various jazz settings, playing in and around the well-known hotspots in New York City, doing recording dates high and low across New England and the tri-state, touring the States with Postmodern Jukebox, which you're on tour with right now, right?
Yes, yes, I am.
Or getting called up to the Uber majors to play with Dave Matthews at Madison Square Garden. Ben is everywhere. Ben Goldernovick, known to the world as Ben the Sax Guy, is here to share his wisdom, knowledge, and good graces on today's episode of Coffee with Creatives. So Ben, thanks for joining. Welcome. How's it going?
It's pretty good, thanks. In Burlington, Vermont right now. How about yourself? How are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for asking, man. I just dove in headfirst into this YouTube channel this year and kind of reaching out to all my buddies out there and in the trenches and doing the damn thing, as they say, to get some perspectives and get some good stories and share it with the world. So I guess my first question is after all these years, I mean, you play with all these different groups. I think it's Owls, Postmodern Jukebox. You go up to Dave, you do the swing stuff, you do the blues, and all of it really well. After all these years, like, what keeps the fire burning to, be involved in all these different styles and to try all of these new gigs?
Well, a few things like, and thanks for such a great introduction. I mean, it's like I was born to do this, so I just can't imagine doing anything like playing music, whether it's performing, recording, like even just editing videos and stuff, teaching. I think I just always knew that that's what I was meant to do on this earth, just to always try to find creativity and lots of different things. Like you just mentioned a bunch of the groups. That's one of the things that I think really keeps it going. Like I have this tour now with Postmodern Jukebox, and then have some shows coming up with Hot Sardines, and then my own band, and also I think that's kind of the way. Well, I don't know, maybe it's maybe it's just a New York thing, I don't know, but like I feel like that's the way music is going these days, which part of me actually kind of didn't like it, but now I really do. Like the idea of like, okay, I play in Iron Maiden and that's my band and that's it. Like I feel like there's something really cool about that, but where I'm at right now, I'm just little of this, little of that, and I commit whatever situation is, I really commit to it, and then I know then another situation is going to happen later. So I think that's a big part of it too.
Right. So it feels like it's almost an inherent thing for you, right? Like it's ever evolving, right? So one opportunity leads to another. Also, I feel like there's there's economic variability, right? It's not like you've got a tour that goes year round and you can bank on the scheduling or you can bank on the consistency. You almost have to be planning several steps ahead. Right. So I would say, it's like 100 times harder to be a purist, especially now, considering the cost of touring, considering the new mix. And I don't want to focus just on money, because that's not what it's about, right? Like we're talking about, this is what's inherent to me, right? This is how I play. But also you have to be able to live in parallel with the economic indicators of it, right? So, so I find that really interesting. You said, like, I almost wish I could do that one band. But also I've learned to like playing in all these other gigs, right? If you were to, I'm trying to phrase this in a way that's not going to get you in trouble, but if you were to play one style of music, right, and wanted to stay a purist to one style, like where would you gravitate towards?
Well, that would definitely would be jazz. But with that said, I got this thing. I feel like if I'm just playing the same thing over and over and over and over and over, even if it's my own original music and jazz and it's like my absolute favorite thing in the world, I'm still going to need variety. That's both creatively and, like you said, professionally too. I think that, but yeah, I mean, but again, definitely jazz would be the number one thing. But even with that, it's tricky because there's so many different types. Like, you know, there's like
Bop, hard
like
bop, straight ahead.
right, yeah, exactly, yeah, yes, because it's like, yeah, I've kind of only recently gotten into this like 2030s trad jazz. But, you know, you mentioned hard bop. I think that would be like the absolute best thing if I was playing that all the time. But even that, I think it's just, I really like mixing it up. I think it's good on both the creative and the professional thing. I don't have a boss. You know what I mean? Like I wonder.
It's autonomy.
Like,
yeah.
You know, you're right. It's like I do this, okay, cool. Then I do another thing. Like a lot of times, completely different people and everything. You know, so I think it took me a minute to realize that that's kind of how it is, at least for me.
Yeah, no, that's great.
And then I do that. Like I say, even if it's my own music and my own band, like if that's all I was doing, I'd be like, this is a little silly. Like I want to play someone else's music now. You know?
You need a little variety. Yeah, I'm the same way. For the groups that I do play with, if I'm there for more than 3 or 4 years, I kind of question like, what else could I be doing, or where could I be growing, you know, as a player? You know, it's that whole the journey, not necessarily the destination. You know, if you land in one band, well, if you landed, what are we working on? Right. So
yeah.
So I get that. Yeah, that's really cool. Can you tell us a little bit about how you manage your lifestyle in the context of such a challenging landscape? Because it's, like we said, it's unpredictable often, and it's a constantly changing landscape when it comes to making a living playing music. What does that look like for you? You said you're going from band to band to band, but are there gigs you say no to? What's Ben's big picture right now?
Keep the calendar booked. I think that's the number one thing. To be, well, I don't really like using this word, but I'm going to use it. Be selfish. This tour, you know, I am 110% Postmodern Jukebox, you know, but like any little downtime thing, I'm trying, you know, I'm looking into booking some other things, set up this interview here, you know, even on my Instagram thing, I put like a picture of the show, but then I just put a thing of one of my songs on Spotify, you know, so I think just sort of just right. Yeah. And one of the really cool things about Postmodern Jukebox is from day one, they actually encourage that, which I think is really cool and very forward thinking. Because I'll like see what the deal is. Like if I'm playing with a band and it seems like they wouldn't want me to do things like that, then of course I won't, you know. But PMJ really, to the point where I actually thought it was even like a little weird. You know, Scott is one of my good friends. Yeah. Like even in the early stages, he was like, we would do videos and he's like, hey Ben, like, you got some of your own stuff, man. I'll give a plug to that. I'm like, sick. What? You know, like I didn't even understand the idea of, like you said, cross-pollinating, cross-promotion. I didn't even understand it. So he like explained it to me, and this was back in like 2009. You know?
Right.
And like I've been doing that ever since. So it's cool. I feel like that's, of all the projects I do, that's the one that seems to encourage that the most. But it also seems like it's kind of catching on. But that's sort of how the industry seems to be going. Everyone's got their own thing, and they come together as a group.
Yeah, you know, it's funny you say that. I remember reading about, and I'm going to forget, there was this drummer who played at UConn for years. His name was Justin Foley, and he played in a hardcore band. You know, they ended up on, you know, Ozfest and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to forget the name of the band, but these guys are on the bus, and in between gigs, they're managing other bands. They're working on promotion, and they're not relying on, you know, the label to do that stuff. The label is just basically the bank at this point in a lot of scenarios, right? See, to me personally, that's exciting because there's nothing I would hate more than just like sitting on a bus for 8 hours and like just reading a book 10 days in a row. Like I want to sink my teeth into something, but I also understand that everybody's personality is different. It seems like you are thriving in this environment, right? Like I just see, like you said, your calendar's full, you're checking out new groups. And when, you know, the calendar opens up, you're finding the time where you can book it, which is really cool. Talk to me about that a little bit. Like you're on a tour bus going city to city, like we talked last night. You've got that 15-hour drive. Okay, you booked the gig, but like, what does that full day look like? You got the travel, you got the gig at night, you got maybe some, you know, promotion happening during the day. But tell me what the full day looks like.
I found that there's like two different ways, at least for my experience, that I've done it. And one is with a bus, and the other is with a van. So with the bus goes overnight. So then we sleep in the bus. It's nice, pretty relaxing. Like we sleep in the bus and then it gets to the venue usually pretty early, like 10, 11 a.m., something like that. That's kind of the main free time right there from like 11, up until about like 3 in the afternoon. Then we do a sound check and then the gig, like once the sound check starts, then it's like,
In the zone.
the hours are kind of like 2, 3 in the afternoon up until basically midnight, then I try to wake up, early, like, like 9 or 10. I know it's not really early for like the rest of the world. Sorry.
No. Hey, no apologies there, bro. Yeah, no, that's great.
So, and then also yesterday I ended up kind of waking up earlier, like 8, and then I just like the bus was still going, so then I went, no one else was awake, so I was doing some video editing like on the bus right there. So it's kind of like a non-stop thing, but it's fun because it's like it keeps moving. The bus pulls in, set up, we do the sound check, do the show, maybe hang for a little bit, unwind, get back to the bus, go to the next place. Then by the time I get home, I'm like, well, where's like the movement?
Yeah,
So
an adjustment. Yeah.
And then the other way, and like with Hot Sardines, we do a van, so that's different. That's like driving during the day, and then playing the show, and then going to hotels. I think like the advantage of bus is that you can get to the place a lot earlier and walk around. And I specifically remember we were in Toronto. I was just walking around at like 11 in the morning and just enjoying the city. And then before sound check. But then the advantage with the van, sleeping in a hotel instead of the bus. I mean, it's different, different things.
Pros and cons to each scenario kind of thing. Yeah. Speaking to all of that, right? Some of the most fun conversations that I've had talking to different musicians. And I don't know if you remember Alex Grossi, who plays with Quiet Riot. He was a buddy of ours growing up. We recently had a conversation about Rudy Sarzo and the days with Ozzy and, their war stories. So you've done Dave, you've done Postmodern, you've done Owls, Hot Sardines. You're bumping shoulders with everybody, the whole deal. I love talking war stories. Do you have one you can throw out, a fun story of, it doesn't necessarily mean like celebrity, but like a funny thing that happened on the road or just something that gave you a chuckle while you were out there? I'm sure you've seen all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. So we were playing in Berlin. So we played there. These concerts are fairly early. They usually end like at 10, 11. I knew that the bus was going to leave at 2. I think we were done at about 10. So we had a few hours. My friend Max that I grew up with, he lives there. He was saying that he works at a dance club, and I had no idea what it was. He was going to come to the show, but then he realized he had to work. So I was like, oh, no problem. I'll go check out the dance club. And I had no idea what it is. And it turned out it's Berghain, which is like and he told, to be fair, he told me what it was, but I had no idea. I take it you have heard of this.
Is that like a fetish club?
Totally. Yeah. I think it's considered to be like the biggest party spot in the world. And they don't let anybody in, nobody. Like I saw the bouncer turning people down in different languages, and I was just standing there, like you mentioned, it's a fetish club, it's all leather, and I'm there like just wearing like a dress shirt, kind of like this. So like I was so nervous. This bouncer was huge, dude. So I was like, Max, he works, because I didn't know if he spoke English. I was like, he works here. I'm like, there's no way I'm getting in. And the bouncer looks at me, he goes, form a fucking sentence. I was like, oh yeah, my friend Max works here. I put my name, Ben Goldernovick. I took out my passport with me. Yep. And then he's like, wait. I think it was maybe like 10 minutes or something. And it felt longer. And then I got in.
That's awesome.
And the first thing they do is they put a piece of tape over your phone. That was crazy. I mean, honestly, I just kind of walked around for an hour and left, talked to my friend and stuff, and then but it was just to be even in there. Yeah. Wow.
To have that experience and like,
yeah,
totally. So you mentioned your band. What's going on with that?
So there's kind of two things going on. There's the Owls with a Z. That is a band that I started with my friend Anton Vital. We started that about 2014, kind of like rockabilly, jazz, and jump blues, all instrumental and mostly originals. A lot of like shuffle beats and just really, loud, edgy,
high energy.
jazz. Yeah.
Cramps meet with the Stray Cats kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So we have that group, but now Anton lives in China now. We do like about like one or two remote recordings a year. Our drummers in where is he? Switzerland. So it's like we were all in Brooklyn, and then COVID and whatnot. Yeah. A few songs a year. So then what I've been doing is taking that similar vibe and then adding a little Vegas, same edginess, high energy, but like a little bit of schmaltziness too.
A little bit of, polished smalt kind of stuff. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So then I have that, and then that's Ben and Friends. So I've been doing that. We had to keep it a secret. Like, been playing the entire pandemic.
The whole scene, man, was tough.
I give credit to these restaurants. I mean, they work their ass off. They get taking the temperatures and spacing out tables.
A lot of those people were, especially the owners for the smaller moms and pops, were going home and just managing debt the whole time, right? There was no money to be made. Yeah. It was survive. So definitely shout out to all the mom and pops that continued to bring musicians in throughout the pandemic, carefully and safely, giving us opportunities to perform for folks and giving folks an opportunity to come in and see shows in a safe environment.
I can always count on the restaurant since forever. Not like, oh, I played this tour. No, I'm not going to play the restaurant. No. I'm always going to play the restaurant.
That's a big thing. I was having a conversation recently with a friend about how, like, you talk about the 80s or the early 90s. There was a lot of this, like, well, I got to this level, so I'm not going to do that stuff anymore. Now it's play the gigs, so very cool. Well, awesome, Ben. I did want to ask you a little bit about the Dave experience. And I know we talked about it like after it happened. You did 3 nights at MSG, right?
Two. Yeah. It was 2 nights. Yeah.
Yeah. Talk to me about that experience, because you had to learn a lot. I know you had done previous sit-ins before, but you had to learn a lot of material quick. This is like, you had to learn. Right. Talk to me a little bit about that experience and your perspective looking back on it.
Yeah, man, middle of November, and I was scheduled to take the booster shot. I have no problem saying that every vaccine I've taken, I did it, skip the line. Like, there was like, oh, essential workers first. I was like, dude, sorry. I'm traveling for gigs. I don't want to get any of my bandmates sick.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so I just
survival. Yeah, it's survival.
Yeah, right. I'm teaching lessons. Like, I'm not teaching at a school, so like they actually have like a certain teacher card in New York to get the vaccine. But anyway, I figured out how to schedule all the vaccines early, because the last thing I want to do is get any of my colleagues sick. So, and I don't want to miss any gigs either. So, so I was a little bit nervous that day, because I was like, they might ask me some questions. They might be like, wait a minute, you're not over 65, or you're not a nurse. So I was a little nervous that day. I was just like, I'm just going to get it done. And I specifically didn't have any gigs booked that weekend, both out of it just kind of worked out that way, but also like because I knew I was going to do the booster. So like I was walking over to the pharmacy, and then I saw that now that's a whole other story about that we met at the airport. That was a whole other thing after a PMJ tour, actually. So like a lot of times Dave and I will just be like, hey, how you doing? Good, great, thanks. Just a nice little thing. I figured that was the case. I was very anxious to get this booster thing. So I was like, okay, I'll say hello to Dave in like 10 minutes, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm like walking over there. So then I go, and then thankfully they didn't give me any trouble to get the shot. So then I look at my phone again. He had texted me again, and he said, "This is Dave Matthews. Are you still living in New York?" And I was like, that's a little unusual. He texted me twice. I was like, So I'm like, yeah, hey, how you doing? Da-da-da. Just, I was saying I was living in New York, and he's like, are you playing? I was like, yeah. Like, as I'm texting, I'm like,
what's going on?
Yeah. I'm always happy to say hello to friends. But I'm like, something's up. I don't know what it is. And then Rashad Glass, he plays sax. He lives in Connecticut, actually. So he's a good friend of mine, and he's a huge Dave Matthews fan. And he's been very helpful to me with this whole process, even from the beginning. And I'll be like, hey, which tunes are from which shows? And he'll help me with that. So I gave him a call, and I was like, yeah, Dave's texting me like any advice. He's like, oh, just have fun, like. I was like, should I ask if there's a gig? He's like, no. As I'm on the phone, then I saw that Dave mentioned that Jeff Kaufman had COVID and couldn't do the show. I didn't even know that DMB was going to be at Madison Square Garden. I knew that they had played in Connecticut, and I almost went to those shows as a fan. Rashad had sort of given me the play-by-play of the Connecticut shows. Yeah, Dave was saying that that Jeff had COVID, and if you happen to be available this weekend, I was like, oh,
I'm available.
Yeah. Yeah, then Dave put me in touch with Rashawn Ross, trumpet player. So then I talked to him, and I was telling him, like, I texted him a list of the songs that I'm familiar with. But now in retrospect, I'm like, okay, well, I'm familiar with the songs. They change over time.
Yeah. And they add, add intros and breaks. Yeah.
There are a few gigs I had done Dave Matthews covers, like sax and violin, or usually it's just me. So it's like I'm playing the part like as close as I know it, but I hadn't done it like, in the horn section. But it was basically just, the first thing I had to do was figure out instruments to bring, because my soprano was actually at the shop, because I had taken it to the shop, and I said, oh, no rush on this one, I'll never need it. And so then I called that place. I was like, can I get the horn now? That worked out. And then figuring out a Barry sax, because I don't actually have one. So I borrowed that from a friend, and so that all worked out. Reed Worthy is the shop, Reed Worthy in Brooklyn. And then
shout out to those guys for turning it around.
Shout out big time. Yes. Stefan. Oh my goodness. I don't even know. I think Zenuk, I think is his last, Zenuk.
I also noticed you had a lot of charts on the page. Did they put those charts together for you, or did you like take recordings and have to chart everything yourself?
Rashawn, he really guided me through it. I found a bunch of charts because it was like a Thursday. So I like, he sort of said a few places where I could download charts. So I like just put together as many as I could, made a little book. A lot of people I don't even have an iPad. So I made a book, and then before the gig, Rashawn and myself were like compiling more songs, and then we went over them, just the two of us in the dressing room. But to be honest, I'd say maybe it was like half the charts. What it really was him saying to me, "Hey man, check this out." Okay, cool. Both before the show, the whole audio production, like I barely used the in-ears, so I'm kind of behind the times with that. So we were using in-ears, and I didn't even know, like, I had like a wireless system, but I never even pressed mute ever. So, but I was using all the stuff that the bands get. Like, I brought my own gear just in case, but I was using the band's gear. So we would turn off our mics and like walk over, and Rashawn, he would actually like play a part to me, and then we'd figure it out right then and there at the show, then we walk right back and play it.
That's amazing.
And if I couldn't figure out what he was doing, then I was screwed.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, it's clear just watching the videos that you weren't just covering. I mean, you were adding a whole new layer to that band.
Thanks. Yeah.
So definitely kudos to that. It sounded fantastic, and it's a testament to your ability to jump in and adapt. Adaptability seems to be the key word for somebody who wants to do it for a living, has found not only the ability to play at a professional level where you can be adaptable, but also like to just adapt with people, right? I remember there was a band that was that was working with, I think, Clive Davis a while back, and I worked with some folks, and they were looking for a drummer, and our mutual contact said to me, "Is like, yeah, I know you can play, but are you a good hang?" Right? You spend.
It's so funny. People say that. Yeah.
Are you a good hang? And it's so important. I think that like a lot of young musicians need to realize that, like, your ability to be a decent social interactor, or at least not be crazy, is key also to the parallel to being the best player that you can be, right? And that's hard to swallow for somebody who practices 8 hours a day or what have you, I think. So I think you're a great example of somebody who has that like well-rounded offering. Yeah, so thank you for sharing that. I love to have these kinds of conversations because it gives insight on a level, like you and I have seen a lot of stuff. You've seen way more than I have, but it's amazing the misconceptions that are out there. Like you said, this guy's playing in front of 3,000 people, he's set for life. No, not the case. Oh, you're on a tour bus, it's a party every night. No, not the case. Right?
Yeah.
There is some of that, right? Like, but that's why I love doing this kind of stuff. So thank you for dropping some knowledge. One last question before I ask you to tell us everything that you'd like the people to know about.
Nice.
We talked about the sort of the socio-cultural aspect of all of this. Now let's talk about the playing a little bit, right? You are able to go out and do the jazz gigs. Like you said, hard bop that's the par for you.
Yes.
What's your, you've played for so many years with all of these groups and I've seen you play and we've played together. Like there's no fumbling, right? There's a certain level of performance and professionalism at this point that is not only inherent, it's your job, it's your work.
Yeah, right.
What do you do to practice? Like, what's your warm up? How do you keep it all fresh?
I actually don't have any warm up routine. I never have. and I don't really like to I usually just make stuff up, with the sax, the low note, or actually both sax and clarinet. I know that the low notes, I have a little bit of trouble with those, and the really low notes and the really high notes. So I do long tones on both of those. I'm not talking about like an hour. I'm talking about like maybe 5 minutes, maybe less, So some long tones, couple scales, and then I just try to make something up. I'll just come up with a little pattern, and then I'll maybe, they talk about, oh, you should play it in all 12 keys. I'll play it in maybe one other key. You know what I mean? Now, don't get me wrong. Like, when I was in college, I was practicing like crazy and pretty regimented, but that's not the case anymore. I mean, I practice, but honestly, not that much. Usually I'm like, if I'm practicing, it's usually to record something. Yeah. I try to just keep it fresh. I think for me, it's music, not sports. I quit sports a long time ago for a reason, so like I'm not like, and plus that's not how I want to play. Not musical. So another thing that I like to do that I try to spread the word about is assume that someone's always listening. Is someone going to want to hear you go, probably not. And I feel like that's why I've rarely ever pissed off any neighbors. In fact, I usually get compliments. Focus exclusively on sound, have a nice sound. I practice mostly songs and improvising and occasionally like transcriptions, but honestly not that much of that either. But just practicing songs.
There was a time when I was doing a lot of GB general business gigs, and I would, I gotta learn this pop song. There's some triggering in there. There's some electronics. I'm gonna transcribe note for note. And then you get to this point where it's like, man, okay, I've gotten quicker at it. I've got more efficient, but is this really helping me? Should I be playing a little bit from here and a little bit from here? Yeah. So now for me, it's more like if I got to learn 20 songs real quick, it's a verse that has this form, right? This groove.
Right. Yeah.
There's these two fills you got to nail because that's part of the song, whatever. And here's the pattern in the chorus. Here's the breakdown or whatever. But very rarely do I go through and transcribe note for note anymore. It's something that I used to do, and I used to love to do it.
Oh, it's good that you used to love it.
I feel it maybe when I'm hearing from you too, is like, you are always playing. Why do I want to spend my time constantly working on the things that I'm going to be playing if I'm going to be playing them? When I'm playing it, I've got this mentality that like somebody's always listening. So whether I'm in, the green room working out a pattern and playing one of the tunes, I want it to sound as good as when I'm playing. So when I'm playing, I'm also concentrating on making my playing better. Right.
Right. Yeah.
I feel like there's this like threshold that, maybe at some point you cross or partially cross where it's like, okay, my time is now worth me focusing on the performance itself rather than sitting here. And you work on your embouchure a little bit, you get warmed up, in the mouth or in the muscles, you might play a scale or two, you work on the notes that, you could crack on every once in a while kind of thing, or hitting those low notes that you don't play a lot, but it's coming up in this tune. And then you set it and forget it. Right. And then you use the acumen, you use what's inside of you to speak.
All right.
Because you're there. You're not trying to get there. You're there, and now you're improving the there, right? As weird as that sounds. Right. So yeah, very
well, and I remembered now what I was thinking, right? Like I'm thinking of two things. One is, maybe you saw it, Trey Anastasio put a video where he was teaching a few things on guitar.
I didn't see that.
He did like a very informal instructional video. He was like, take all those chord books, throw them in the trash. Music is rhythm. I thought that was really cool. Like I was like, yeah, yeah, throw the books in the trash. The only thing that I personally would add to that, specifically for any instrument, but like especially for horns, is that music, it's sound as well, quality of sound, right? Tone, the quality of sound. So it's like you could do the whole if it's not in good time, and if it's not with like a nice full tone, then it's like kind of like, what's the point?
You're playing and then there's the rest of the band, right? As opposed to one sound, right? Yeah. Cool.
And then I was watching this interview, James Iha, right? Smashing Pumpkins.
Smashing Pumpkins and A Perfect Circle.
Yeah. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, he's on those records.
I did not know that.
Yep.
Far out. Because like I saw he said something that like I was very confused at first, but now I kind of see what because like they were asking him if like what he practices. It's kind of like what you were asking. He goes, I don't practice anymore because I'm always writing. You get to a certain point, it's one or the other. When I heard that, I was very confused, but like now I'm kind of at that point now. I'm like, yes, I do practice, but it's usually like here and there, but I'm usually going to record something or come up with an idea or something.
Functional.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
As opposed to conceptual that's interesting. I've heard different variations of that story, a lot of times over the years. James Iha is a great example. When I think about Smashing Pumpkins and I think about Perfect Circle and then some of the other stuff I've heard him do, it's texture, it's timbre, it's rhythm, it's tone, right? It's not Yngwie Malmsteen, which is that's a thing, right? That's its own pitch. He's developed his sound. When James Iha's playing, right? Like you can hear it.
Yes.
That's that Smashing Pumpkins sound, and more importantly to me at least, the Smashing Pumpkins distortion, right? They created certain distortions and feedbacks that were new at the time, at least from a production perspective. And that. And so it seems to me like that's developed. And so now it's like, I'm going to write because I know what my sound is. I know who I am, right? It's kind of like coming up and go through all these, like I want to play this, I want to play that, I love this music, I love that. And you cling to all of those things as opposed to sort of incorporate it. And I feel like once we get to that stage where it's like, oh, I have a more of an appreciation for all kinds of musics, you become sort of like the vessel for the melting pot of your influences as opposed to one or the other. And there are purists, but I feel like at that threshold, that's where you start to go like, well, I don't need to practice conceptually as much, if at all. I can.
Right. Yeah.
I've got these other much more important responsibilities that
there it is. Yeah.
And that directly reflect the value of your time.
Yes.
So yeah, that's great. That's good stuff. Well, Ben, I can't thank you enough for taking some time. I know you're city to city right now, and you're having a great time out there. I just want to give you an opportunity here to plug anything you want to plug. And, I always like to say, what are the 3 things that you want the world to know about Ben Goldernovick right now?
My website's benthesaxguy.com, and then it's all social media, mostly Instagram and Facebook, those things. And I have a Spotify page now. I guess I've had it all along. I didn't even realize it. I'm like putting up songs on that. We said the 3 things: music, creativity, curiosity. I think, and also I feel like that's kind of the key to life. And I would encourage, because for these things, I like to try to hopefully be helpful to someone, to hopefully people who are listening. And I would say kind of going with the selfish thing, but it isn't really selfish. It's just, as far as just doing your own thing. I think it's important to try to do something every day, even if it's just for a second, that's like your own thing, whether it's trying to write a song or like, I don't know, maybe writing a poem or maybe editing a website. Because I find that when I got the call from Dave, I was really doing that. I was I was ready. Yeah. I think it's no coincidence. Like if you take some time to just do your own thing every day, whatever you got going on in life, even if it's 5 minutes, I think that's like sends the good karma to the world,